Christmas Eve, 1945. The war was over. George and Jenny Sauter were celebrating with their 10 children in a modest two-story wooden home. The house was full of noise and excitement. The younger kids begged to stay up late to play with new toys. Jenny agreed, as long as they did their chores and put the cows away. At 12:30 a.m., the phone rang. Jenny answered. A female voice she didn't recognize asked for someone out there, then laughed strangely and hung up. Jenny thought it was just a wrong number. She noticed the downstairs lights were still on and the curtains open. She locked the door and went back to bed. It was a strange night, but she had no idea it was the last time her family would ever be whole. An hour later, at 1:30 a.m., Jenny woke up again. This time to the smell of smoke. George's office was on fire. Panic! George and Jenny grabbed the 4 youngest children downstairs and ran outside into the snow. But the staircase to the attic where the other 5 children slept was already a wall of flames. George was desperate. He tried to go back in. The fire was too hot. He ran to grab the ladder always kept against the house to climb to the attic window. It was gone. He ran to his 2 coal trucks. If he could pull them up to the window, he could climb on top. Both trucks, which worked perfectly the day before, refused to start. They could only watch helplessly in the freezing cold as their home collapsed in less than 45 minutes. They assumed their 5 children were gone. Christmas morning. The fire department finally arrived nearly 7 hours late. The house was just a basement full of ash. The coroner told George and Jenny that the fire had been hot enough to completely cremate 5 bodies. Bones, teeth, everything turned to dust. The site was bulldozed over. Case closed. But Jenny couldn't accept it. She started researching house fires. She learned that even in an inferno, bones remain. Crematoriums burn hotter than a house fire for 2 hours and still leave bone fragments. In this fire that lasted only 45 minutes, there was nothing, no skulls, no teeth. Jenny began to suspect the impossible. What if the children weren't in the attic when the fire started? The Sauters hired private investigators. The clues they found pointed one way: sabotage. The phone lines hadn't burned through. They had been cut cleanly at the top of the pole. The missing ladder? It was found days later, hidden in an embankment away from the house. A mechanic looked at the trucks that wouldn't start. He found their electrical systems had been tampered with. And then George remembered a visitor from months earlier. An insurance salesman who got angry when George refused to buy a policy. The man threatened him, saying his house would go up in smoke, and his children would be destroyed. George was an outspoken critic of Mussolini back in Italy. Was this politically motivated? Was it the local mafia sending a message? For decades, George and Jenny erected a massive billboard on Route 19, offering a reward for information. They followed leads across the country. They never gave up hope. 20 years later, 1967, Jenny received a letter with no return address, postmarked from Kentucky. Inside was a photo of a young man in his 20s. On the back it read, Louis Sauter, I love brother Frankie. Illo Boys, A90132. The family believed the resemblance to their missing son, Louis, was undeniable. But the man in the photo was never found. George died in 1969, Jenny in 1989. They went to their graves believing their children were stolen that Christmas Eve, and the fire was just a distraction. Were they cremated in 45 minutes? Or were they taken into the night? Look at the evidence and tell me your theory in the comments.